Whether you're an elite competitive athlete, a high school student serious about your sport, someone who just works out to be healthy, or a 90-year-old grandma wanting to maintain unshakable balance and mobility, nervous system training is the single most critical element of physical performance. And I bet you have never, ever heard about it. Most people spend years grinding in the gym, chasing superficial muscle mass or basic cardiovascular endurance while completely ignoring the electrical operating system that actually controls their stability, joint protection, reaction speed, and biological longevity. The truth is simple. You cannot perform at your peak. You cannot protect your joints from chronic degeneration, and you cannot extend your physical longevity without direct neuromuscular calibration. In this video, I'm bringing you directly inside a live presentation from the 90-day intensive to break down the exact mechanics, science, and physical protocols of nervous system training. Stick around until the very end of this video so you can discover precisely how this works and how to apply it to your own biological vessel. Let's dive in. Today's presentation is on something called the nervous system training. The nervous system training is not new, but it's been around for a while. But in all the years that I've done fitness, I started actually before I was 13. At 13, I started to run track. I ran track in middle school and high school. Then I did a lot of yoga and other types of training. I did a lot of different things that more like for women. Obviously, I didn't do male type of sports when I was younger. I got into that as I got older, but I'd never, ever heard of nervous system training up until I started to seriously want to fight. I really thought I wanted to fight, at least amateur. And that's when I found the nervous system training. And I was like, it's so good for everybody. Why don't more people know about it? Well, knowing how the matrix operates, maybe that's why, because it's so good for people and lots of people should be doing it. So nervous system training has several different applications. And in the PDF, it's a pretty in-depth PDF. There's sections for how to apply it with fitness, and there's sections for how to apply it for longevity. It's the same training, but different aspects of it. Like Qigong or Tai Chi, it can be a meditative art, or it can be a fighting technique, right? Depends on how you carry it out. So the same thing with this, many different applications, and it's applicable to anybody, kids who are training, the elderly, people, anyone, if you have a body, you can do nervous system training. It just has to be the correct application. So I'm going to start with showing you a video that I found that just shows you like the cream of the crop, how athletes, top level, internationally recognized top level athletes in MMA are applying this. But I'm very well aware you're not a professional athlete. Neither am I. Most of my clients are not. I've had some very athletic clients, some people who are very, very serious enthusiasts, but being a professional athlete is a whole other thing. But we can watch how they do this training and see what's possible. So I want to show you this short video, and then I'll show you the PDF, okay?
Have you ever felt slow in sparring, like your punches don't have that snap, or your reactions are just a bit late? The truth is, it's probably not your strength or your cardio, it's your nervous system. And today, we're going to talk about how to train it and look at one of the most advanced approaches ever developed, the Marinovich system. What's up, everyone, and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're breaking down nervous system training for combat sports. You'll learn why it's so important, how the Marinovich system changed the way athletes train, and I'll give you a full weekly plan you can use right away. Let's get into it. In the context of combat sports, the nervous system can be defined as the network of nerves and specialized cells that coordinates the body's movements, reflexes, and responses to stimuli, enabling fighters to react quickly, maintain balance, and execute precise techniques under high-pressure situations. In simpler terms, it's what allows an athlete to see an opponent's move, process it instantly, and respond with speed and accuracy, critical for punching, dodging, grappling, or any rapid action in combat sports. Now, why should fighters train the nervous system specifically? Here are 4 big reasons. Think of your nervous system as the body's electrical wiring. It's your command center. It tells your muscles when to fire, how fast, and in what order. In combat sports, that means quicker reactions when your opponent throws, more explosive power in your punches, kicks, or takedowns, better coordination so your movements are smooth and efficient, and sharp decision-making, even when you're tired in the later rounds. If you don't train your nervous system, you're leaving speed and power on the table. That's why nervous system training is one of the biggest performance hacks in combat sports. There are 6 main ways to train your nervous system. Let's break them down. 1. Explosiveness and power. Medicine ball slams, rotational throws, clap push-ups, jump squats, kettlebell swings. Focus on short sets, maximum effort, full rest. Quality over quantity. 2. Speed and reaction drills. Reaction ball drops, partner calling random strikes, pad work with unpredictable combos. The goal: train your brain to recognize cues and fire instantly. 3. Neurocognitive training. Vision drills like tracking a ball while striking. Dual task training. Shadowboxing while solving quick math or reacting to colors. Constraint sparring. Only counters, only one hand, or specific strikes. This forces adaptation. 4. Footwork and agility. Agility ladder drills, mirror drills with a partner, shadowboxing with sudden stop and go. Teaches your nervous system to change direction instantly. 5. CNS conditioning. Think short bursts, not long endurance. For example, 5 seconds of maximum sprint, then rest 90 seconds. 6 to 8 rounds of explosive punch flurries with full recovery. This sharpens the nervous system instead of wearing it out. 6. Breathing and relaxation. Your nervous system has 2 sides, fight mode and recovery mode. If you only train fight mode, you'll burn out. Use box breathing, meditation, or slow nasal breathing before and after training to recover faster and stay sharp. Now, let's talk about the Marinovich system, sometimes called the Marinovich training system, is a specialized athletic performance program developed by Marinovich, who was one of the first NFL conditioning coaches and later refined by his son, Todd Marinovich. It became famous because it was ahead of its time in focusing not just on muscles, but on the nervous system, biomechanics, and functional movement. Core principles of the Marinovich system. 1. Nervous system first. Instead of training just strength, the Marinovich approach prioritized training the CNS, central nervous system, to fire muscles faster and more efficiently. 2. Movement quality over muscle size. Exercises emphasized precise technique, fluid motion, and eliminating inefficiencies. Think coordination plus balance plus explosiveness. 3. Unstable surfaces and coordination. Athletes trained on balanced discs, balls, and other unstable setups to improve stability, proprioception, and reflexes. 4. Plyometrics and functional training. Medicine ball work, resisted sprinting, explosive push-ups, and bodyweight drills to mimic sports movements. 5. Neuromuscular control. Focus on fast twitch fiber recruitment and controlling small stabilizer muscles often ignored in traditional weightlifting. 6. No traditional bodybuilding lifts. Barbells and machines were mostly avoided. The system emphasized functional strength rather than maximal raw strength, e.g., less bench press, more sport-specific pushes/pulls. Now in combat sports context, the Marinovich system is especially relevant because it sharpens reaction speed and explosiveness, perfect for striking and takedowns. Builds coordination under fatigue, helping fighters maintain form late in fights. Improves joint stability to reduce injury risk. Focuses on movement economy, meaning less wasted energy in the ring or cage. Here are some drills inspired by Marinovich training. Resisted footwork drills with bungee cords. Medicine ball rotational throws to mimic striking power. Balance board striking, shadowboxing, or throwing light punches on unstable surfaces. Single leg hops and bounds for reactive power. Short explosive sprints with full recovery. About lifting the heaviest weights or running the most miles. It's about training smarter, making your nervous system sharper, and becoming a more explosive, efficient fighter. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments which drill you're going to try first.
So that's just one video of very many. There is some old videos from like the 80s, professional athletes already at that time doing the Marinovich system. And now there's videos, very recent ones, where you can see that actual professional athletes are doing this And it's evolving. So it's an evolving art and a science, and new things are discovered all the time. I'll just show you a very, very quick, this is like 30 seconds of a kid in high school created something just because, and it looks awesome. And this is an application I have not seen anyone do except him. He's the highlight, and I'm just going to show this to you. Okay, then the rest is other people. So obviously that's very, very advanced, and we're not 13-year-old boys. We can't, we can't, I even as much as I tried to replicate what he was doing, it's very hard at 46. However, I was able to do some things. And so later on, I'm going to show you some things. I want to go through a little bit of this, and then later on, I'll show you little short clips of me doing nervous system training and my clients doing regular people, not athletes, not athletic at all. And some people are older. Like I had a client, she was 77. She was doing a little bit of that, actually. And she had two knees that were fake, both of them. Yeah, she was doing a little bit. So that's what I'm saying. If you just regress it and keep it really simple, there are things you can do at any age. So let's start with the basics though. I realize this probably may get a little bit technical. If something is over your head, it's okay. Don't feel overwhelmed, because you're going to have this PDF, and this is meant to be learned over time. This is a science that was developed over decades by many, many people, right? The nervous system training, neuromuscular calibration for everyday life, joint longevity, and structural mastery. Let's start with that, because that's the foundation where it's not sports specific. It's nervous system training for just anyone, right? What are the applications? So nervous system training is often perceived as an exclusive protocol for elite competitive athletes, yet its true value lies in preserving and optimizing the general human biological vessel. Every daily physical action, standing, walking, reaching, carrying, or turning, is governed by your central nervous system. And in the way that Alliance described it, essentially the central nervous system is much more where the operating system operates. It's not just localized in the brain. That's a very outdated idea, where people thought the mind was in the brain. The entire nervous system and fascia has a lot more to do with our operating system, and how we upgrade our operating system by upgrading the nervous system through this type of training. So traditional physical fitness routines focus almost entirely on superficial muscle mass or basic cardiovascular endurance, while ignoring the electrical command center that controls stability, movement precision, and pain signaling. When your central nervous system operates without proper calibration, your muscles fire with delayed timing, your joints absorb uneven impact, and your connective tissue gradually deteriorates. By adopting the proprioceptive and neuromuscular training concepts popularized by specialty sports science and the Marinovich methodology, you upgrade your vessel baseline hardware. So not just the software, you update the hardware. And an updated hardware can run on much more sophisticated software, right? So this submodule outlines how neurological conditioning directly improves your daily life, extends functional longevity, and protects your physical structure. 4 mechanisms of neurological hardware preservation: active joint protection and ligament preservation, joint degeneration, cartilage wear, and eventual surgical interventions are rarely caused by age alone. And some people say that it's actually never age. Aging, it's more like what we think is aging is happening because there's other factors at play. Those factors aren't caused by aging, but the other way around. They're the direct result of chronic uneven mechanical pressure caused by misaligned movement mechanics. Traditional heavy weightlifting and rigid movement paths force joints into predictable repetitive wear patterns that strip away protective cartilage over time, which is why we don't recommend that people do just walking or just training that involves forward linear movement. We actually try to get people out of that and into multiplanar movement as much as possible. Neuromuscular training uses unstable surfaces, slant boards, and fluid resistance to activate the deep stabilizer muscles that surround every joint. When your sensory nerve receptors fire correctly, your muscles instantly contract around your joints to absorb impact forces before those forces can damage your ligaments, tendons, and articular cartilage. Prevention of osteoarthritis and avoidance of joint surgeries. Surgeries such as hip replacement, knee reconstruction, and spinal fusions occur when long-term structural wear destroys joint integrity. By continuously challenging your equilibrium through multiplane instability drills, you distribute kinetic forces evenly across your entire fascial network instead of concentrating force on isolated joint surfaces. Improved proprioceptive feedback ensures your body maintains correct joint alignment during unexpected missteps, trips, or uneven foot landings, stopping acute joint trauma before it happens. Balanced neurological loading keeps synovial fluid moving fluidly inside joint capsules, supplying essential hydration and nutrients to cartilage tissues to reverse early degeneration. Enhancement of biological longevity and fall prevention. In non-athlete populations, functional age is defined by balance, spatial awareness, and reaction timing. A major driver of physical decline in later life is the loss of proprioception, the sensory awareness of where your limbs are positioned in space. Standing on unstable balance pads, pipes, or slanted platforms continuously exercises the cerebellum, keeping your neural feedback loops sharp and responsive. Higher neural response speeds allows your vessel to automatically recover balance during stumble or slip, effectively eliminating the risk of debilitating falls, bone fractures, and long-term immobility. Essential metrics of functional improvement to everyday operators: reflexive reaction speed and agility. You do not need to fight in a ring to benefit from rapid neuromuscular signaling. Fast neural response speeds allow you to catch falling objects, react instantly to environmental hazards, adjust your step on slippery or uneven terrain, and move through physical environments with effortless confidence. Also, situational awareness. As you train your nervous system, you develop situational awareness. So, but when do you need it most? When you're stressed. In everyday life, you're okay. You're mostly okay. It's when you're stressed that things happen. So, like in your case and Ming, right? You were really stressed about the party, the kids, the test, and then bam, the car situation happened, right? So there, your energy was so stressed, it took away, it robbed from the situational awareness. So if you do this kind of training for a while, you will develop, you will strengthen that situational awareness. And that's more important than muscles, actually, because you can have massive muscles and constantly be clumsy and get into horrible accidents and injuries. Not good. So, and not to say muscles are not important. I always say how muscles are very, very important. But situational awareness is going to save your life, right? Drastic reduction in daily pain signals. Chronic lower back pain, neck stiffness, and knee discomfort are frequently caused by sensory motor amnesia, a state where overused prime mover muscles lock up while deep stabilizer muscles go dormant. Neuromuscular calibration reawakens dormant muscle chains, immediately relieving unnatural strain on your spine and weight-bearing joints. postural alignment, and reduced energy expenditure. When your central nervous system is calibrated, your posture aligns naturally without conscious effort or muscular strain. Balanced posture reduces the kinetic energy required simply to stand or sit upright, leaving your vessel with significantly more daily physical and mental energy. Metabolic efficiency and cellular fluid circulation. Dynamic balance training engages small intrinsic muscle fibers across your entire body simultaneously. This full system muscle activation enhances lymphatic fluid circulation, speeds up cellular metabolic waste removal, and optimizes fluid delivery to connective fascia. Daily practical execution parameters, sensory foot awakening. And Ming, you need this. You need this like water for the rest of your life because of the bunions on your feet and because of the disconnect in the past, right? And the knee issue. As you do this, and there's more training on that, how to do it, but as you do it, you should be able to correct the bunion without any surgery. And I've seen it. I've seen people completely recover. They get straight toes, completely straight from doing sensory foot training. So spend 2 or 3 minutes daily standing or performing slight weight transfers on a slant board or textured balance disc in bare feet. This wakes up the thousands of sensory nerve endings in the soles of your feet, instantly improving sensory communication to your spinal column and brain. Unstable light movement integration. Replace heavy static gym exercises with light multi-directional body weight or elastic resistance movements performed on an unstable surface, such as a balance pad or disc. Focus on smooth, continuous control rather than muscular exhaustion. Fluid and rotational balance holds. Incorporate gentle rotational holds or micro adjustments while holding unstable fluid resistance, such as a partially filled water canister. Allow the shifting fluid weight to challenge your deep trunk stabilizers, conditioning your core wall to support your spine automatically during daily movement. I know it's hard to figure out necessarily from a description what to do. It's okay. Ideally, in a gym, I would show you. And this is actually something the Alliance wants us to do eventually when we have people, and I got my Restoration Dojo brick and mortar gym, to actually have people, just like we did a Zoom, have people come from all over the world for like a week where I would train everyone on the fitness part of it, because that's not something I can show you via Zoom. I mean, I could show you, but like you need to be trained in it, you know, physically, and I would need to stand there watching how you're doing it to adjust it. So that's in the works. That's in the future. Summary directive for client integration. Nervous system training is not merely a tool for high performance athletics. It is the ultimate insurance policy for your biological hardware. By shifting your focus from building superficial muscle mass to refining neural signaling and joint stabilization, you eliminate chronic pain, protect your joints from irreversible degeneration, and secure physical independence and high output mobility for the entirety of your lifetime. The second section, nervous system training for longevity, advanced regulation and sovereign hardware alignment. So this is also not specifically for sport, it's for longevity. So this is more what you guys would be doing on a daily basis. And sometimes you would be the sports stuff, but this stuff, everyone in my programs would be doing this kind of stuff every day. Your nervous system acts as the primary electrical routing system for your biological vessel. Unmanaged environmental friction, high-frequency stress loops, and acute sympathetic spikes degrade the stability of your bioelectric field. This module establishes direct somatic interventions to stabilize your autonomic nervous system, raise your vagal tone, and fortify your physical perimeter. Core principles of autonomic regulation, vagal tone optimization, and parasympathetic activation. The vagus nerve serves as a central neural conduit linking your brainstem to major organ systems. Persistent sympathetic arousal locks your biology into a reactive state, draining systemic cellular energy and impairing metabolic digestion. Engage structural diaphragmatic breath patterns daily to stimulate the vagal nerve signaling pathway. Implement deliberate, extended exhalations to shift your nervous system out of stress, reactivity, and into parasympathetic recovery. Apply ambient temperature shifts, such as cold water facial application, to trigger immediate vagal recalibration. If you can do cold plunges or cold showers, do a little bit. You don't want to overdo. You don't want to spend an hour there like Russians do. They just get into the ice water and play chess with each other for an hour. No, you don't have to do that. You can just do like 30 seconds. You can even start with 5 seconds. And ideally, you will alternate the high heat in the sauna with cold. That's the best. If you can somehow do that, if you have a little sauna at home, and then from that you go into the cold shower, then the hot sauna, then the cold shower, do it at least a few times. That is so amazing for your nervous system regulation. You won't necessarily feel it immediately, but after doing it for a while, you will notice that your attention span is better. So sympathetic spike disruption. Uncontrolled adrenal surges degrade neural efficiency and exhaust adrenal reserves, eliminate breath holding during physical tasks or high stress focus states as sudden breath suspension forces rapid cortisol accumulation. Maintain continuous fluid nasal respiration during all physical routines and cognitive efforts. Intercept acute stress signals instantly through paced respiratory deceleration before physical fatigue sets in. Somatic grounding and bioelectrical discharge. Physical tissue stores dynamic kinetic stress. Accumulated physical tension with the cervical spine, fascia, and pelvis restricts natural fluid circulation and creates signals of internal distress. Perform daily movement protocols, including controlled joint decompressions and somatic shaking to release locked kinetic tension from your connective tissue. So, by the way, what we just saw in the videos, that they're doing this. They're not just shaking, it's more architected, is better architected than that. There's specific exercises, but what they're recommending here, you can do with some of those exercises. And obviously you can do rebounding and you can do jump rope. Well, I don't know, Enmin, can you do jump rope? Can you jump? Probably not, right? You're muted. You're muted. It's okay. You can tell me later. We can figure
Okay.
that out. Can you do jump rope or no?
I haven't tried.
You
I
haven't.
should try. I should try because it's
Oh,
possible. I think it should be possible, but I just have to have the right kind of jump rope that functions. I don't have one.
yes. So start without the jump rope. Start with tiny jumps, just by
Yeah.
barefoot, not on
Yeah.
a slippery surface,
Okay.
on a surface where you have good grip. Tiny
Right.
little jumps, and then try to make them more, and just see how you feel, and go from there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to mute you again so I can keep going. Practice direct grounding protocols by connecting with natural raw earth elements to equalize electric charges accumulated from ambient digital devices. They stress that, and they're right. I noticed that also that you know how to do muscle testing, right? If you're standing next to all of this stuff, you muscle test yourself, you come out weak. You go into nature, you muscle test, you're strong. So these things really do affect us negatively, unfortunately. Maintain structural spine alignment to ensure unobscured neural flow along your central nervous network. Actually, that's why I like to train in nature. That's why for most of my life, I didn't train in gyms. When I was younger, I didn't know why. I just didn't like it. It wasn't anything particular. It was just a sense. And now I understand why. It's all the EMFs. And I much prefer to just train in nature with trees and rocks. And I just didn't care that other people didn't get it. I don't care. And that's how I trained for most of my life. But um, I did pretty good, so it worked out. Operational execution plan for the client. Morning baseline protocol. Upon waking, complete 5 minutes of structured box breathing, utilizing equal counts of 4 seconds for inhalation, hold, exhalation, and post exhale hold. Yeah, even Navy SEALs do this kind of breathing. It seems so simple, but it really works. to calm your mind, to center you. Now, I do this in the sauna. When I sit in my infrared sauna, I do this kind of box breathing. And sometimes I do the Tesla version. I exhale for 6, hold for 3, inhale for 9, hold for 3, exhale for 6, hold for, that's why it's 3, 6, 9. And you can move these around. You can, for example, the exhale and the inhale is the longer one, and the hold is usually 3, but you can play around with those. You can make it longer. You can make it 8. You can hold for 4 and exhale for 8. So you can play around with the numbers, like sacred numbers. But I recall for one of the bioenergetic sovereignty audits, there was actually another guy from Germany, and they recommended that he do the Tesla version. That's how I remember it, because they recommended him to do the box breathing with the Tesla numbers, the 3, 6, 9. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I started to do it after that, after they gave him that protocol. So hydrate with pure structured water combined with unprocessed mineral salts to optimize cellular conduction prior to engaging with digital displays. Perform 3 minutes of targeted joint mobilization to open neural pathways and stimulate lymphatic fluid flow. Midday stabilization protocol. Complete a brief vagal reset sequence consisting of slow, deliberate nasal breathing prior to eating to ensure proper digestive enzyme release. Remove digital hardware exposure during meals to eliminate sympathetic noise during nutritional absorption. And of course, remove stressful people and stressful situations out of your eating environment. Apply rhythmic exhale cycles if high focus demands cause tension accumulation in your neck or head. Evening recovery protocol. Terminate high-intensity mental tasks and high-intensity artificial light. Exposure at least 60 minutes before sleep. Oh, and this is why we recommended the red glasses to you. This is perfect. I'm going to show you mine. These are my red glasses. This is what I wear when after 8 p.m. If I'm still working on the computer after 8 p.m., I don't want all that blue light in my eyes. Because I want to be able to go to sleep. So wearing red glasses like this helps to eliminate the blue light toxicity. Everything looks red, but that's fine. And so it actually calms your nervous system. So I don't wear them during the day. I only wear them after 8 p.m. And because very often I'm just so busy, I don't have necessarily a lot of time between the moment I stop working to the moment I go to bed, but I always will wear those. And that, even though my mind is still working, but my brain and my eyes aren't being poisoned by the blue light, basically. So that's the important part. And I highly recommend those to everybody. You can get them on Amazon. They're not expensive. They're not magical. Although they do have something there. It's not just red color filter. They have something in them that specifically blocks the blue light. So make sure you get it from a reputable brand that designed them correctly. Actually, I'll add a link to those in the description. I'll add a link for those glasses for people. Terminate high intensity mental tasks and high intensity artificial light exposure at least 6 minutes before sleep, or 60 minutes before sleep. See, that I have a hard time doing. I'm just very busy. Like maybe I can do 30. Perform targeted fascial elongations to release physical bracing built up across your postural muscles during the day. Transition into total darkness using extended exhales to support natural restorative sleep cycles. Yeah, that is a little bit easier to do. You can turn off the fluorescent light. That basically got to turn off the fluorescent light and put on the red glasses, and that at least helps. If you're like me and you're working like literally until it's time to go to bed, then at least you've got that. But as much as possible, yeah, you would give yourself some space. I think you can read. I think that's different. That's a different mental process. You can read. That would be the perfect time to be reading a book. Summary of long-term systemic mastery. Regulating your nervous system requires active, ongoing management of your physical hardware. By consistently executing these somatic protocols, you remove systemic vulnerability, build biological resiliency, and maintain peak functional stability. Okay, so now on to the origins and evolution of neuromuscular training architecture. at least in modern times. I would not be surprised if we find out that it was actually Akhenaten that developed it, but they have not mentioned it yet. I will ask them later. This is what I know how it came. It came from the Russians, basically. That the Russians were really dominating in sports for quite a while. They still do in a lot of sports, although there's great athletes from all over the world now. The sport is very developed, but Russians still dominate in certain sports like wrestling in general. I guess it's like a national sport almost. During the Cold War era, Soviet researchers and sports scientists revolutionized athletic performance by studying human physiology from a neurological perspective rather than purely a muscular one. Figures like Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky, the father of plyometrics, and Dr. Anatoliy Bondarchuk recognized that maximum athletic output was limited by the central nervous system rather than the physical size of the muscle tissue. Key Soviet neuromuscular discoveries, shock method and plyometrics. Soviet researchers realized that forcing a muscle to rapidly stretch under kinetic load before contracting created an elastic recoil effect powered by the nervous system's spinal reflexes, known as the stretch shortening cycle. Periodization and central nervous system fatigue. They proved that high intensity speed and power training tax the nervous system significantly longer than metabolic or muscular fatigue. Meaning the things that stressed the nervous system, were way more exhausting and for longer than just stuff that was physically challenging. That's what they found. So that's why they realized, oh, we just got to train the nervous system. We can't have stressed out athletes and stressed out soldiers. They don't perform well when they're stressed out. So and they were right in that sense. Proprioceptive stimulation. The Soviets experimented with balance tools, slanted platforms, and unexpected movement loads to heighten proprioceptors, the sensory receptors in joints, tendons, and muscles that communicate spatial awareness directly to the brain stem and cerebellum. Oh, minor note on this. As we know, soldiers in particular, they tend to have lots of PTSD. But here's the thing, that's kind of like a symbol for us as well. When we are too stressed about something, it's not necessarily physically stressful, mentally stressful, we get trauma from that, right? That's what we call trauma, post-traumatic stress. So when you train the nervous system, even you don't do any talk therapy, it's like literally the opposite. But when you're doing the nervous system training, you're actually also training yourself in a way that later on you can handle stress much better and you don't get traumatized like you did before. Even though it wasn't done through explaining to you something, it was just your body adjusting to the stress, right? Which is very interesting if you think about it. Which means that we don't actually carry stress in the mind. We never did. It's the whole body that carries the trauma. And that means the whole body is experiencing it. So Marv Marinovich and the adaptation of the system. Who is Marv Marinovich? Marv Marinovich was an elite American football player who played as an offensive lineman for the University of Southern California and the NFL for the Oakland Raiders in the 1960s. After experiencing the physical limitations, chronic injuries, and structural stiffness caused by traditional heavy weightlifting protocols, Marinovich dedicated his life to researching superior conditioning methods, discovery and integration of Soviet methods. In the late 1970s and 1980s, Marinovich intensely studied declassified Soviet sports science literature and translated research documents detailing shock training, fascial elasticity, and proprioceptive loading. He observed that traditional Western gym culture relied on slow, heavy, rigid lifts in single planes of motion, bench press, squats, deadlifts, which built heavy muscle bulk, but slowed down neural speed and created joint dysfunction. It doesn't compare it to yoga, but as a side note, I'll also say that yoga also is not enough because you're doing static stretches, mostly sitting down or on the ground. You're also not training the nervous system. Yoga does great things for flexibility, breath work. It's good for other things, but it doesn't train speed and the nervous system in this way at all. So if someone out there, it does yoga, like consider also including this in your repertoire of what you do. He adapted Soviet high velocity concepts into a customized system, replacing heavy iron weights with unstable surfaces, slanted platforms, rotational pipes, lightweight dynamic resistance, and water-filled weights. The Todd Marinovich paradigm. Marv applied these neuromuscular principles from birth to his son Todd, structuring every phase of Todd growth around balance, coordination, and sensory refinement and flexible speed. Todd went on to become an elite high school and college quarterback, serving as real-world proof of concept for his father revolutionary training framework. Marv later partnered with chiropractor Dr. Judith Hughes to formalize these physical balance and nervous system techniques into the probotics framework. And I have the book here, the probotics book. I actually have it and I'm studying it. And they have a very, very handy chart of a comparison of all the different sports that compared to probotics, what probotics does versus other sports. And very interesting, actually. That way, at least you know the limitations. There's no bad sport necessarily, but it's you want to know the limitations of everything. And just so you guys know, that book, that's how much it is in Amazon right now. It's over $1,000. Yeah, when I got it, it was less than this, but it's incredible. I can't remember how much it was, over 100 for sure, but just to show you, you can't even buy it anymore. It's very rare. If you can get this book, it's amazing. But there's videos online too. Just wanted to show that to you. So why professional athletes utilize this system while casual gym goers do not? And if you've been to gyms, you'll see most people do not train like this and they don't understand it. And if they try to do it on their own, they probably wouldn't be able to figure out the system. And it's not their fault. It's like you got to kind of be a scientist to understand it a little bit. The mass market trap of muscle isolation. Casual fitness culture and commercial gyms are built around predictable, machine-based isolation routines designed for physical aesthetics and hypertrophy, like a nice, large-looking muscle that looks good in a picture, rather than functional neurological output. So they're not training for real life. They're training for a picture. We're not going to train like that. We're not training to be a fitness magazine model. We're training to have a long, healthy life where our mental clarity and our cognitive ability and our vessel are super sharp and super tuned. That's what we're training for. Machine-based training requires minimal central nervous system engagement because the machine stabilizes the weight vector for the user. So you lose even the ability to train balance because the machine doesn't require it. It does all that for you. Traditional bodybuilding methods are simple to learn and replicate, making them easy to sell to the general public, but they build slow, rigid, and fragile athletic hardware. The elite need for neuromuscular speed and kinetic shielding. Professional combat sport athletes, MMA fighters, NFL players, and high-velocity sprinters cannot rely on static muscle mass alone. Their survival and dominance depend on reaction speed, joint stabilization, under chaotic forces, and unyielding balance. And that's why when you train like this, you don't get trauma like you did when you were younger, because you were already prepared, your body was already prepared to deal with chaos. So when chaos erupts, you're calm. Proprioceptive awakening, standing on circular pipes or unstable balance discs forces the cerebellum to fire lightning fast electrical adjustments down the motor nerves, training the body to react reflexively without conscious thought. So essentially, you're building in that level of correct reactivity as second nature. Because realistically, in a chaotic situation, you don't have time to think. You have to react, and you have to react intelligently. And I used to really study self-defense videos online that lots of different martial arts put out. And it was incredible to see how most people, if you don't train, this is not criticism of anyone, it's not their fault, but most people, if they don't train in a chaotic, dangerous situation, they do absolutely crazy things that make zero sense, endangering themselves, running in the wrong direction, falling, like just because they didn't train at all for anything unpredictable. Everything in their life was very predictable, and that's why you got to train like this. Chaotic force absorption. Using water weight and dynamic rotational apparatuses teaches the fascial system and muscle fiber chains to absorb unexpected impacts, drastically reducing the rate of ligament tears and kinetic injuries. Neural force efficiency. Professional athletes utilize this system because it trains the brain to recruit up to 90% of available muscle fibers instantly during an explosive movement, generating maximal speed and power with zero unnecessary physical mass. A regular person, for 100% certain, a regular person who does not train and doesn't do this kind of training, if they suddenly had to recruit 90% of their muscle, they would get an injury. And even some athletes, if they don't do this kind of training, they would get an injury. That's how injuries happen, because you have a sudden movement that requires 90% of your, not only muscle, but all of you. That's how it happens. Tactical summary for master module integration. By tracing the lineage of nervous system training from Soviet sports science through Marv Marinovich evolution, this module establishes why neuromuscular conditioning is the ultimate baseline for physical hardening. I like how they say baseline, they don't say it's a nice addition, they say it's the baseline. It's like, we got to do it. Replacing static weightlifting with dynamic balance and proprioceptive challenge guarantees superior neural speed, unshakable stability, and total dominance over physical hardware. So this is the outline of the actual system. Primacy of the central nervous system. Traditional conditioning focuses on building localized muscle mass through isolated rigid movement. Marinovich inverted this paradigm by treating the central nervous system as the master operating system. That's the master. Muscle fibers do not fire independently. They execute commands relayed from the brain and spinal cord. Training the speed, frequency, and coordination of neural firing yields maximum athletic speed, power, and structural resilience. Rejection of rigid isolation, heavy machines. Fixed trajectory weight machines and hyper heavy barbell loading lock your biological vessel into unnatural linear movement tracks. Rigid heavy lifting creates unnatural muscle bulk, tightens connective tissue, and creates neural lag. Marinovich eliminated fixed gym machines in favor of free-moving, multidimensional athletic resistance. The objective is to build elastic force production and dynamic velocity rather than slow, bulky hypertrophy. Proprioceptive awakening through unfamiliarity. Your nervous system thrives on novel sensory feedback. When physical movement becomes predictable, neural adaptations plateau. By introducing continuous, unpredictable, balanced challenges, you force your proprioceptors, the sensory receptors in your joints, tendons, and feet, to remain in a state of high-density alertness and immediate adaptation. But notice the alertness is not stress. You're not so stressed that you can't even function, which is normally what happens to an untrained person when they're dealing with constant changes. So they're not training. It just eventually leads to trauma. You see how there's a big difference, how you can have the same type of situation, but one will train you and the other one will cause you trauma. But it's essentially the same type of situation. Key physical modalities and equipment architecture. Unstable surface environment. The central piece of the physical system is the systemic elimination of static floor contact during training. Exercises are performed on balance discs, slant boards, wobble boards, and stability balls. Operating on an unstable base forces every stabilizer muscle in your feet, ankles, knees, hips, and spine to make hundreds of micro adjustments per second. Lightweight, multi-directional resistance. Instead of crushing joints with extreme iron loads, the system deploys targeted low mass resistance tools. Hand weights and foot weights attached directly to the extremities, apply continuous tension during dynamic movement patterns. Oh, and Ming, that would be amazing for you. Little 1 pound, that's all you need. 1 pound on each ankle. You can buy them on Amazon. Yes. And going forward, wear those little weights on your ankles when you train. And then when you take them off, suddenly you'll feel like you're flying because everything is so much easier. Elastic resistant bands, light medicine balls, and stabilization therapy tools allow full kinetic acceleration through entire ranges of motion without compressive spinal trauma. Muscles are trained to produce force while in extended positions. Movements combine simultaneous stretching and contracting actions, restoring natural fascial recoil. This creates isometric elasticity, allowing your biological hardware to absorb kinetic impact, prevent soft tissue tears, and release explosive energy instantly. Three-phase kinetic training execution. Phase 1, proprioceptive and grounding activation. Training begins at the base of your vessel, the feet and ankles. Exercises on slant boards and balance discs activate dormant sensory nerves in the feet, establishing an unshakable connection between ground forces and your spinal column. Light rotational drills open the hip socket and release spinal compression before dynamic loading begins. Phase 2, multiplane isometric core integration. You transition into stability balls and dynamic balance pads to load the deep trunk stabilizers across 3 distinct physical planes, sagittal, frontal, and transverse. Controlled isometric holds on unstable surfaces build dense structural strength without adding restrictive physical volume, locking your core into a protective kinetic shield. Phase 3, explosive CNS velocity and reaction drills. High velocity movements are integrated, including rotational medicine ball throws, reactive footwork patterns, and multi-directional spine flurries. Chaotic cues and multitasking elements, such as visual reaction signals during physical execution, train your brain and body to process information and strike with maximum kinetic speed under pressure. Core execution parameters for systemic mastery. Quality over neural exhaustion. Quality over neural exhaustion. Nervous system training operates on completely different principle than metabolic grinding. Exercises are performed in short, ultra-intense bursts, ranging from 5 to 10 seconds of total output. Complete neural reset and recovery are enforced between sets to ensure every rep is executed at peak electrical velocity rather than in a fatigued, sluggish state. Strict sequential progression. Exercises must be executed in a non-negotiable sequence. Each movement pattern neurologically activates specific muscle chains and fluid pathways required for the subsequent, more complex athletic movements. Restoration of Paleolithic biological movement. The system restores natural fluid human mechanics, crawling, twisting, springing, balancing, turning your physical vessel into an adaptable high-velocity weapon capable of dominating any physical encounter. And if you think about it, what was the last time you crawled like a bear? When you were like 1 year old, and that's it. So that means that all of those nervous system and muscle reactions haven't been trained for that long. Scientific rationale for neuromuscular training apparatus and unstable surface dynamics. Mechanics of neurological impact of water weights and fluid oscillations. Hydrodynamic inertia and chaotic resistance. Traditional solid iron weights possess a fixed static center of mass. When you lift a dumbbell, the gravitational vector remains constant throughout the trajectory. In contrast, water weights contain sloshing fluid that shifts unpredictably in response to movement. As fluid sloshes inside a container, it creates a hydrodynamic turbulence and continuously alerts the center of gravity, alters the center of gravity. Your central nervous system cannot rely on pre-programmed motor scripts to execute a movement when holding fluid resistance. Every millisecond of movement forces your brain to recalculate the weight vector and recruit microstabilizers across your shoulders, core, and trunk, which is more how a person is. A person is more than what, 80, 90% water? So if you're doing something like MMA, any kind of contact sport, you are dealing with an unpredictable force. And in general, in psychology and life, we're dealing with unpredictable forces, other humans, all the time. We don't know how they're going to react. Even the super programmed people, we don't know how they're going to react because we don't know what command they're going to get from the cloud that we didn't know about. And then they're doing stuff we didn't expect. So this is why this truly prepares you for mental and physical stress the way other things don't. Reflexive motor recruitment and rapid co-contraction. To manage shifting fluid dynamics, your muscle fibers must perform rapid co-contractions, simultaneously contracting opposing muscle groups to lock joints in stable positions. Fluid inertia eliminates momentum cheating. If you attempt to swing a water weight with sloppy technique, the liquid wave crashes against the wall of the container, generating massive rotational torque that immediately destabilizes your posture. This forces your alpha motor neurons to fire at accelerated rates, training your biological hardware to instantly suppress unwanted joint movement and absorb chaotic kinetic energy. Proprioceptive activation via slant boards and ankle mechanics. Ankle articulation and plantar sensory input. Your feet and ankles serve as the primary foundational transducers for ground reaction forces. The soles of your feet contain high concentrations of mechanoreceptors that sense pressure, angle, and tilt. Slant boards place your foot and ankle joints in extreme angles of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion while supporting your body weight. Training on a sloped angle pre-stretches the Achilles tendon and calf complex, increasing the sensitivity of muscle spindles that monitor muscle length changes. Kinetic chain transmission and spinal alignment. Altering the angle of your base of support directly influences the positioning of your knees, hips, and lower spine. Squatting or balancing on a slant board forces your pelvis out of dysfunctional compensation patterns and activates the vastus medialis obliquus muscle above the kneecap, correcting ankle dorsiflexion restrictions, reestablishes clean force transfer up the entire kinetic chain, allowing your energy to pass efficiently from the ground into your core without compressing your lumbar vertebrae. High density proprioceptive challenge via circular pipe standing. Micro instability along a single rotational axis. Standing on a cylindrical rolling circular pipe presents an extreme rotational challenge. Unlike flat floors or soft foam pads, a rigid pipe offers zero surface compliance and minimal contact area. The pipe creates a single line of contact beneath your foot, causing immediate forward and backward tipping vectors. This mechanical setup demands millimetric balance corrections executed at high neural speeds. Proprioceptive loop activation and vestibular integration. Balancing on a rolling pipe activates three primary sensory systems simultaneously: your visual system, your inner ear vestibular system, and your joint proprioceptors. Golgi tendon organs located in your foot and ankle tendons detect subtle tension changes and send lightning fast sensory signals directly to your spinal cord and cerebellum, bypassing slow conscious processing. The cerebellum responds by sending immediate electrical corrections down your motor nerves to adjust your posture before your body loses its center of gravity. Core stabilization and automatic fascial tensioning. You cannot balance on a circular pipe using conscious muscle strain. The extreme sensory feedback forces your deep abdominal wall, including the transversa abdominis and multifidus muscle, to lock onto continuous isometric tension. This turns your entire fascial sheath into an integrated kinetic spring, hardening your vessel against external displacement and giving you absolute balance control in dynamic combat conditions. Robotics Proper Body Exercise Comprehensive Book Summary. I think this is useful. This is the book that I have that's like over $1,000. Maybe soon it will be like 3,000 because you can't buy it anymore anywhere. It's a very rare book now. So let's just look at the summary. Overview of the probotics methodology. Proper body exercise mechanics. The path to true fitness was authored by legendary sports conditioning specialist Marv Marinovich and chiropractor Dr. Edith Hughes. Presents a revolutionary approach to physical conditioning designed originally to restore compromised elite professional athletes and optimize high-level performance. Probotics shifts the focus of fitness away from traditional isolated weightlifting toward total neuromuscular integration. Traditional exercise protocols often weaken biological structures by overtraining isolated muscle groups in predictable linear planes. Probotics corrects these imbalances by stimulating your nervous system, building uniform flexibility, and creating unshakable physical balance. Actually, maybe we will skip it just because I essentially covered it already in the previous sections. I'll just read this part. Multi-plane movement versus linear isolation. Human biology is engineered to operate fluidly across three distinct physical planes: sagittal, frontal, transverse, and the combinations of those. Conventional gym exercise, the machines, keep movements restricted to repetitive single plane trajectories, creating severe muscle tightness and vulnerable joint angles. Probotics integrates dynamic multiplane movement, forcing your biological vessel to stretch and strengthen simultaneously under multi-directional angles. This full spectrum movement capability prevents structural wear, restores joint mobility, and repairs lingering physical injuries. Okay, another very important part of the nervous system training is breath work. They go hand in hand. The type of breath work that we're going to talk about goes hand in hand with the probotics nervous system training. You actually cannot do one without the other because the breath is so connected to our life force and how the operating system operates through the body. So scientific rationale behind Patrick McKeown's breathwork protocols, the Bohr effect and carbon dioxide tolerance. A primary physiological misconception in conventional fitness is that over-breathing or taking large gasping breaths increases oxygen delivery to tissues. So like you'll see when people start to get fatigued, they go, and when I ran track in high school, no one corrected me. Everyone would breathe like that. No one corrected us. It was just understood. It was just normal. It was seen as normal that if you're fatigued, you're going to breathe like that. But it turns out it's wrong. Patrick McKeown work demonstrates that arterial blood is already saturated with 95 to 99% oxygen under normal atmospheric conditions. Oxygen is transported through your bloodstream bound to hemoglobin. According to the Bohr effect, hemoglobin cannot release oxygen into your working muscles, organs, and brain tissues unless sufficient carbon dioxide is present in the blood. Chronic hyperventilation or habitual mouth breathing off gases, too much carbon dioxide, causing blood vessels to constrict and lacking oxygen onto hemoglobin. Oh, and another thing, lots of kids mouth breathe. You may have when you were a kid, right? You see, it's almost like a stereotype. If you take pictures of kids sleeping, their mouth is open. And so they're essentially being trained to mouth breathe without realizing it. So it's very important that you teach yourself and train yourself to breathe through your nose all the time, while you sleep, while you're awake, when you're exercising, especially when you start to get very fatigued, to nose breathe at that point. A light, slow nasal breathing builds carbon dioxide tolerance, dilating blood vessels, and maximizing cellular oxygenation. Nasal respiration and nitric oxide transduction. Breathing exclusively through your nasal passages transforms your upper respiratory tract into an active biochemical processing facility. Your nasal paranasal sinuses produce nitric oxide, a gas that is carried directly into your lungs with every nasal inhalation. Nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator and bronchodilator, widening your blood vessels and airway passages to dramatically improve oxygen absorption in the lower lobes of your lungs. Nitric oxide exhibits powerful antimicrobial properties, cleansing incoming air before it reaches deep pulmonary tissue. But your mouth doesn't. Your mouth is not a filter for all the crap in the air. Your nose is. So when we mouth breathe, we immediately become toxic. You see? Autonomic regulation via vagal nerve stimulation. Your respiratory pattern directly controls your autonomic nervous system state. Inhaling briefly increases heart rate by dampening vagal tone, whereas slow, controlled exhalations stimulate the vagus nerve, triggering the release of acetylcholine to show your heart rate, to slow your heart rate. Reduced volume breathing protocols activate the parasympathetic nervous system, suppressing excess adrenaline, lowering serum cortisol, and restoring baseline emotional coherence. Intermittent hypoxia and erythropoietin release. McKeown utilizes targeted breath hold protocols following exhalation to create temporary conditions of hypercapnia, high carbon dioxide, and hypoxia, low oxygen. Controlled post-exhale breath holds stimulate your kidneys to release erythropoietin, EPO, prompting your bone marrow to produce fresh red blood cells. And remember, the bone marrow is what creates the killer cells that kill off all the pathogens. So correct breathwork stimulates your immune system. This natural adaptive response increases your blood oxygen carrying capacity and enhances lactic acid buffering without requiring altitude chamber exposure. Harmonization of McKeown protocols with Marinovich probiotics nervous system training. Suppression of sympathetic overdrive during unstable kinetic loading. The physical conditioning protocols developed by Marv Marinovich force your central nervous system to operate under extreme sensory loads using slant boards, circular pipes, and water weights. Operating on an unstable base naturally triggers a survival stress response, prompting a non-conditioned person to hold their breath or hyperventilate. Essentially, they're panicking. Immediately, they're panicking. And so they're not thinking clearly. And what happens when people panic? They freeze. That's what happens. So you become rigid. So this is why you got to train yourself out of becoming rigid when under stress, right? Because what happens when you're rigid? You break, right? Rigid things break, right? Integrating McKeown nasal respiration during probiotics balance drills prevents acute sympathetic spikes, ensuring your brainstem remains calm while your motor cortex executes complex physical microadjustments. Dual function of the diaphragm for core and postural stability. Your diaphragm functions simultaneously as your primary respiratory muscle and your primary internal stabilizer for the lumbar spine. When you breathe shallowly through your upper chest, your diaphragm loses its structural leverage, compromising pelvic and spinal stabilization. Inevitably, if you look at most people, even if they train at the gym, they're only lung breathing. They're not diaphragm breathing. Babies diaphragm breathe, and then we lose that. Most people lost that by teen years, gone. So they're never actually moving their breath through the entirety of their nervous system. And so it's like, you can imagine like a tree, right? With roots going deep into your body. When you breathe shallowly, the deep roots, they don't get any air. So what happens? They atrophy. You lose them. So practicing diaphragmatic nasal breathing while balancing on unstable circular pipes creates internal intra-abdominal pressure, locking your core wall into an unshakable protective shield. Rapid neuromuscular recovery between explosive sets. Marinovich protocols demand maximum electrical output in short explosive kinetic bursts, followed by non-negotiable neural rest. Applying McKeown recovery breathing, small nasal inhales followed by extended relaxed exhales immediately stimulates vagal tone during rest intervals. This rapid downregulation flushes metabolic waste, resets alpha motor neurons, and clears neural static, allowing your central nervous system to execute the subsequent training set at absolute maximum velocity. Tactical execution directives for client hardening integration. Baseline nasal anchorage. Maintain strict, exclusive nasal breathing 24 hours a day, including during low to moderate physical exercise and sleep. And sometimes people's mouths open when they sleep, and it's inevitable. So there's actually tape. You can get little tape, little piece of tape. You can buy it online. And it doesn't hurt your mouth. Have you ever used it? Have you seen it? But it's like little tape that you put on your mouth that actually keeps your mouth closed. And it really works because a lot of people their mouth opens when they sleep and they don't realize it. And they're mouth breathing the whole time as they sleep. And you sleep for 8 hours. So for 8 hours, you're training yourself not to breathe properly. So I do recommend the mouth tape. Pre-training neuromuscular priming. Prior to stepping onto slant boards or unstable surfaces, perform 3 minutes of light nasal breathing, reducing your breathing volume until you feel a distinct but manageable air shortage. This elevates carbon dioxide levels and prepares your central nervous system for rapid motor unit recruitment. Kinetic movement respiration. Maintain fluid, uninterrupted, diaphragmatic respiration during all probiotics movement progressions. Never freeze or hold your breath unconsciously under physical load, as breath suspension forces instant adrenal depletion. Almost everybody, whether they trained or didn't train, inevitably, sometimes when we're doing difficult things, me included, we start to hold our breath. Why? I don't know, but it happens to everybody. You probably have seen yourself do that, right? So they're saying you got to train yourself out of that, because that is immediately going to put you into panic mode doing that. You won't even realize within like a second you're in panic when you stop breathing, right? So train yourself to breathe properly when you're truly stressed, right? Post-set vagal reset. Immediately following a high-velocity probiotics sequence, execute 5 slow nasal breaths with a 2-second inhale and a 6-second exhale to disarm sympathetic arousal and initiate rapid cellular restoration. Advanced neuromuscular integration, visual, cerebellar, and bioelectric calibration protocols. Overview of systemic neuromuscular optimization to achieve absolute command over your biological vessel. Physical balance drills alone are insufficient. True physical resilience requires optimizing the neurological control loop, refining brainstem feedback, maintaining bioelectrical conductivity, and shielding your system from environmental static. This protocol outlines the 5 core physiological pillars required to calibrate your visual vestibular alignment, accelerate cerebellar neuroplasticity, master autonomic co-activation, and ensure uncorrupted signal transmission across your central spinal column. By the way, Enming, this also answers your question, what is the prerequisite to contacting Alliance? And we're saying bioenergetic audit, this course, and also doing this. This will help you to get there so much faster. And you don't have to do what professional athletes are doing. You just do it at what level you can do that is appropriate for you. And that goes for everybody. But if someone is young and athletic, that's what would be expected of them, that they push themselves at that level, right? So core principles of advanced neurological calibration, vestibular ocular reflex calibration. Your central nervous system calculates physical equilibrium using a precise sensory triad: your visual system, your inner ear vestibular system, and your joint proprioceptors. The vestibular ocular reflex stabilizes your gaze during physical head movement. If your visual tracking lags behind your kinetic movement, your brain detects spinal confusion and instinctively tightens your muscular tissue, restricting movement velocity and athletic speed. Integrating smooth eye pursuit tracking, circadian visual jumps, saccadic visual jumps, and peripheral gaze expansion while balancing on slant boards or pipes eliminates visual neural lag. Calibrating your eyes to lock onto fixed target while your body navigates chaotic surfaces. Tilt trains your cerebellum to process complex spatial changes instantly. Now I was going to mention something. When I was training people at the gym, I had men and women both. I noticed something interesting that I don't think you could notice if you're not watching people training or yourself training all the time. Women, I've never seen men do this. Not once. Even if men were not well trained, they didn't do this. Women who are not well trained did this very often, almost as a default. When they were training, their head would fall back like this, and they were looking at things like this. I don't know. I never understood why. And I would even take a picture and show them, and they didn't know they did it. They didn't realize, so their head would fall back. Sometimes extreme. It was extreme, like somebody was pulling something and then their head went way back. Like if I fully tilted my head back, my hat would fall off. That's the angle. And they did it. And I asked them, why are you doing that? And they were like, I didn't know I was doing it. Or I thought that was normal. I like, no. You gotta like look straight ahead. And like I said, I've never seen men, bring their head back like that. I don't know why women do it. The only reason I can think of, the logical, is that women in general have weak necks, and women do not train their necks. Men who train, they train their necks. They even have, they do these shrugs to train the muscles in their neck. But women of all people should train their necks, because if you have a weak neck, what is a bad guy going to go after? Your neck. If it's weak, he's going to want to break it. Or strangle, right? That's unfortunately, and it's very easy with a lot of women because they don't train and they have weak necks. So it's very easy to then assault that way, right? So, and I think one reason, yes, 1 second. I think one reason women don't train their necks is because they think they're going to look too muscular and it's going to look ugly. No, women cannot have a neck like a man. That will never happen. A woman's body cannot suddenly become like a man just because they're lifting weights. You'll just have more muscle in your neck. It will still look like a female feminine neck. You're not going to lose the femininity. And that's what a lot of women would tell me. I don't want to train my neck because I don't want it to look like a man. Like, trust me, you're not going to look like it's very hard to build that amount of muscle. If you're not doing steroids, especially, you're not going to get, you're just going to get more muscle, but it will look fine. So, and Ming, you had a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself. You just got to unmute yourself.
So can you give us a really simple neck training exercise you can do like during the day while you're doing other things?
Yes, I will make videos and I'll share them with you. That's even better. It's easier than me describing it to you. But there's several. There's ways to do nervous system training for the neck, and there's ways to use little weights, and there's ways to do things kind of like yoga-ish, tai chi-ish for the neck. So there's plenty of things you can do, but it's best that I just show you, okay? I'll probably make a video and share that, okay?
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So, but what you can do already is just be mindful. Be mindful not to go like this. And I used to do it all the time too, until it was pointed out to me. And when I tuned into my body, why was I doing that? That was happening after an hour or two of training when I was tired. And then I could just feel my head was so heavy, it was falling back. And that's why it was happening. Not because my neck is weak, but after 2 hours of training, you're pretty tired, especially if you're doing a lot of things that like BJJ and wrestling type of things. Your whole upper body gets tired. And so that's what I concluded. It must be actually weakness, but they don't realize it. So cerebellar error processing and neuroplasticity. Motor learning does not occur through smooth, predictable repetitions. It is driven by controlled high-frequency motor unit errors. When you wobble or experience micro instability on a pipe or balance disc, your cerebellum detects the exact mechanical failure between your intended movement and your actual physical position. This instantaneous feedback loop triggers rapid myelination, the laying down of protective fatty sheaths along active nerve axons, which drastically accelerate future electrical signal transmission. Embracing balance wobbles rather than fighting them transforms physical balance corrections into direct stimuli for neuroplastic brain adaptation, automatic co-activation, and flow state calibration. Elite physical performance requires maximum motor unit recruitment without crossing into fight or flight panic. That's it. It's a fine line. And that's what you're going to be training, not going into the panic. That's it. Conventional workouts push the vessel into pure sympathetic overdrive, causing tunnel vision, adrenal depletion, and uncoordinated muscle bracing. And that's where it is. Why do people get injured? Because they're uncoordinated. And especially if you don't train in general, most people, why do they get injured? Because they're not coordinated. They maybe had the muscle to accomplish something, but the movement was sudden and they couldn't adjust and they got injured. Like my client who wanted to walk her dog. She was just walking her dog and the dog suddenly lunged at something, a squirrel or whatever. And the way she got pulled, she got an injury in her lower back. She could she could probably, whatever that weight was, let's say it was 30 pounds. She could lift 30 pounds as a like an equivalent, right? That pull. But at that moment, the need to suddenly pull 30 pounds, she suddenly couldn't do it. Or how she went to put on her leggings and raised her leg up in the air to pull on her leggings and hurt her back up. Just, how is that possible? Yeah, well, that's like, welcome to the life of a regular person. They walk their dog and put on their leggings and get injured because they're uncoordinated. So this is why everyone actually needs this. It's just the professional athletes are willing to take the time and the energy that it takes hours to train themselves. A regular person, unfortunately, doesn't care enough, but they really should. Automatic coactivation occurs when your motor cortex delivers matrix maximal kinetic power while your brainstem maintains high parasympathetic vagal tone. Combining explosive kinetic movements with relaxed facial muscles and steady diaphragmatic nasal breathing conditions your biological vessel to operate in a calm, high velocity flow state. Well, that's it. We want to achieve flow state under pressure. That's the definition of the opposite of panic. That's why Navy SEALs and all the high-level elite warriors, they all do this training because they need to stay completely in control, mental control under pressure. Well, we do too, because we're all targeted all the time. We're in a spiritual warfare all the time. So we need this. Bioelectrical electrolyte conductivity. Nerve impulses are electrical action potentials generated across muscle membranes by the cellular sodium-potassium pump. Electrical nerve transmission degrades rapidly if your cellular fluids lack essential unrefined minerals and trace electrolytes. Consuming pure structured water enriched with unrefined sea salt, magnesium, and potassium prior to training optimizes fluid conductivity, clears neural lag, and eliminates muscle cramping. Yeah, some people get injured, not just because they're dehydrated, but because they lack the correct electrolytes and trace minerals, but they don't realize it. Dehydrated or mineral depleted nerve fibers reduce motor unit firing frequency and compromise real-time joint stabilization. Environmental electromagnetic noise shielding. Your central nervous system operates using sensitive microvoltage bioelectrical signals, ambient electromagnetic fields emitted by digital displays, cellular routers, and ambient wireless hardware create subtle electrical noise across your neural networks. Performing nervous system training near active wireless devices introduces signal static, reducing balance, accuracy, and sensory acuity, establishing a clean training space free of active digital transmissions, combined with barefoot grounding protocols before and after sets, ensures uncorrupted neural signal transmission down your central spinal canal. This is why I highly recommend, as often as you can, train in nature. If you can, barefoot. If you're not able to train barefoot because of potential contamination or glass or whatever, wear barefoot shoes. That is truly the best way to train. And I intuitively figured it out years ago when I didn't want to train in gyms. I always train in nature. I couldn't even explain why at that time. That's just what I wanted to do. Operational action plan for the client, pre-training, natural and hydrations, a neural and hydration setup. Drink 8 to 12 ounces of pure structured water mixed with unprocessed, unrefined minerals and trace ionic drops 20 minutes before stepping onto balance apparatuses. Deactivate or remove close proximity wireless broadcasting hardware to eliminate ambient electromagnetic noise during training. Complete 2 minutes of barefoot grounding on natural earth or a grounded conductive mat to neutralize ambient surface electrical charges. Kinetic set execution parameters. Fix your vision on a single target point while initiating balance drills on slant boards or pipes to calibrate your vestibular ocular reflexes. Maintain continuous fluid nasal respiration during all movements to enforce autonomic coactivation and keep your central nervous system out of panic mode. When micro instability or wobbling occurs, maintain your form and allow your cerebellum to process the motor correction naturally. Post-set neural recovery. Terminate sets immediately upon the onset of neurological fatigue or visible slowing of balance corrections. So it's like taking it to failure, if you know what that means. Once you are in failure, then stop. Like, because the nervous system, if you've never trained the nervous system and you start to train it, you're going to find you're going to be fatigued and your muscles will be burning. And that means you got to stop. Basically, it's saying once you feel that, don't push. Don't try to do more. Even though you'll feel like, but my muscles can't do more. But clearly, your nervous system can't. So that means you have to stop. Enforce strict 2-minute rest intervals between sets, utilizing extended nasal exhalations to restore parasympathetic balance. Perform a 3-minute somatic discharge sequence, including barefoot grounding and joint decompression to lock in neural myelination and clear systemic fatigue. The next section just talks about how the nervous system is indeed a more accurate way to describe where the operating system operates, how it's not just in the brain. I'm not going to read this part because you're going to have this PDF and you're going to be able to read it, but that's the point. That's basically the point. And I already mentioned it earlier, but it just explains how the nervous system operates, how the brain operates, and why it's more accurate to say that our operating system operates within the nervous system. I think Woodward would say it's the master operating system. It's the nervous system, and the brain is more the executive portion. So now what I want to do is I want to show you a very brief video of little clips and compilations of me doing basic maybe basic to intermediate nervous system training, and how my clients of different levels of age and athletic ability were doing different things. Now I wish I recorded more videos. If I knew I would eventually be presenting it, I would have recorded more videos. But at that time, I would just record them if they were convenient. So in this one, I'm standing on the other side of the Bosu ball. And the Bosu ball, it's like half a ball. This is very similar to a Bosu ball. And so I'm just at this moment, I'm figuring out what can I do? I don't know yet. I was just learning nervous system training and I didn't know what I could do. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And it's like all the stuff I learned in yoga, but I was applying it to that. So here I'm standing on the two pipes. Essentially, there are two pipes. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'm wearing my toe dividers. I'm wearing the toe dividers. And this is one of the exercises in this book. This is one of the things he recommends as a base to do, like the ski erg machine. And this is my son. He's standing on two of them. And I told him, do the squat, the overhead squat with the weight. So he was able to squat, but not come back up. She is 77 years old. Both of her knees were replaced with prosthetics. And she's standing on both boards doing the ropes. And so this is actually a pretty successful martial artist. I don't think he's a black belt, but he's trained for many, many years. So he's standing on the two boards. The goal is that the sides of the boards should never touch the ground. And he's doing a more advanced version. He does not have his foot centrally on the platform. He's standing on the balls of his feet with his heels off the board. And he's doing the plate around the world with the water weight as it slushes around. Now he's doing the overhead squat assessment with the water weight, and the balls of his feet are on the the balls of his feet are on the platforms. And the goal is to stay on the balls of your feet, keep your heels off the platform, and not let the boards touch the floor. It's actually much harder than you might think, right? So, and then you do multiple sets of it, right? So after a while, your feet start to burn. You see, he's sweating. It may seem like he's not doing that much, but you can see on his forehead, there's all that sweat, right? So his hands are on the pipes, and he's doing pike ups. So this is where he's blindfolded, and I'm hitting the ball lightly. I'm not even hitting it hard. But this is what MMA might be like. You don't know what you're dealing with, right? So this guy, I'm going to pause it for a second. This guy was paralyzed in a wheelchair. He's a war veteran. And then he threw himself out the window. So he completely lost mobility in his legs. So when I met him, he was in a wheelchair. All he could move is his arms and his neck, upper body. And he used to do BJJ. So I told him the only way you're going to be able to properly train, you got to get out of the wheelchair. And so I got him out of the wheelchair, and I got him to do all this stuff. Like, that's the first time in a long time that he was able to do that. In 5 years, the first time he got out of the wheelchair in 5 years to do this stuff. So and you see, he has no ability to even move his foot. His foot is flabby like this, but he is able to start to move the idea is to start to train the foot to do this, right? Dorsiflexion, and be able to control the ball with his foot, essentially, because he has no feeling in his foot. He is doing very basic overhead squat assessment. Actually, not very basic. He's trying to stand on the balls of his feet with his heels off of the board. And he doesn't have the weight overhead because that would be too challenging. He just has it like this. So what she's doing is bringing the weight side to side. And the goal is to bring your hips up. Your butt has to be in the air so it doesn't fall flat. This is another one from the book. Yeah, so these are the water weights that we're talking about. That's also from the book and from the videos. You see athletes training like that. So here he's doing he's on one knee on the ball, and he's bringing the knee side to side. There has to be a complete hip rotation, hip opening and rotation. And if you're really advanced, you squeeze in a push-up in there. You turn, push-up, turn, push-up, turn, push-up. Yeah. He is actually, he was competing. So he was at a high level of athletic. Also, he's at a high level of athletic ability. They've all done MMA for a while. They're not professional fighters, but they've all done MMA for a long time. They're these last two guys are very strong. The last one even competed in it. And I don't know if he won or not, but he competed. So this is actually a lot of weight because he's very strong. So that, I don't know, maybe 50 pounds. I'm not quite sure I don't remember that now. I don't remember how much, but it was hard. So she's doing this for the very first time. She was trying to do what I was doing. Remember in the beginning, I showed you what I was doing. She was trying to do what I was doing. So here she is just doing a Bulgarian squat with the ball. And believe it or not, that's hard for some people. Just staying balanced, not falling off the ball. Just that is hard. Going back into it. Yeah, she's like, oh, it's too hard. So he is standing on the platform. And here you just bring heels back, and then, so yeah, heels back, then toes forward. When people first look at it, they're like, this got to be easy, right? No, it's not easy. So she's trying to do what I was doing in the beginning. Here she's standing. So her feet are like this. They're out. There's 3 positions: feet center, toes in, and then toes out. She's doing the feet out, and she's trying to do the overhead squat assessment on the pipes. And then we start off with just raise your knee and hold it. See if you can just hold it without falling off. Because she's standing on an uneven surface. That's all it is. It's just a bit uneven. And see how hard it is already? Just standing for 30 seconds straight is hard. So we flipped it over to make it a little bit easier because the other way was just too hard. So then we move into bringing your foot forward, then bringing it back. And trying to achieve a horizontal position with your body when you bring the foot back. This is still basics. This is still the basic level. And you see how hard it is for an average person who doesn't train? Now the other knee up. All slow, by the way. You see how slow she moves? You have to move like that because you can't cheat here. If you try to move too fast, where you don't actually have control, you're immediately going to fall off. This kind of training doesn't let you cheat. Wherever you don't actually have control, we immediately find out. Here she's trying to do knees side to side, and actually a circles with her knees. She's doing pretty good, actually. And here she's the goal is to bring the foot, like the knee almost to your face, almost like you're hitting your nose with your knee, because the foot has to eventually touch the floor behind you. But it's hard. So she's halfway. And it's not for lack of effort. It's that it really is challenging. Lack of flexibility, lack of strength. Oh, yeah, we did this one before already. And actually, you do multiple sets of the same thing sometimes. Here they're doing the squat with the overhead weight. And here I'm just playing. I'm just trying to see, I had some time and I was just trying to see what can I do. And I was doing all the yoga stuff that I learned on this platform just to see how long can I stand on this platform doing yoga flow, moving from one position to another without ever having to touch my feet to the floor. I'm doing that's where I was doing the Lord of the Dance pose, the tree pose. Then doing the toes because they burn after a while, your feet burn. So this was a way to like clear out the burn so I can do something else. I believe this is called half moon, right? This is a half moon pose. And again, I'm moving really slowly to get into it. And so will you. When you start doing this, moving really slow is what you should do. That's yeah. I don't know how many seconds was that without getting off of it. I don't know. But then I had to compensate. Since I did it on one side, I got to do it on the other. I don't remember what I did next. So there's two ways to get on, the way I just got on and also just jumping on. But the jumping on is more advanced. Okay, so now I'm kind of doing squats. So then ball overhead. And then squat with ball to the ground. So these are awesome chest openers just by themselves. So you see, you do that by itself. Then you do it on the platform. Then you do it with a very light ball or a water weight. That ball is 10 pounds. Then you do it with a 10-pound ball. So you slowly progress. And then turning it into flow, moving from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another, for as long as possible. And also, I don't know if you can see, but I have my toe dividers on. And here I'm just moving the ball side to side, opening up the chest. just moving the weight, right? So because it changes your center of gravity. When you have that additional 10 pounds, you're forced to change the center of gravity. So that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. I wish I had more. Maybe I have more. I just got to dig it up. I like, that's all I could throw together really quick for you. I hope you found that interesting, not too complicated. Okay, good, good. When I was training in nervous system training for the first time, my sensation was that I felt like my body was getting food, like the same feeling you feel if you haven't eaten for a while and you finally get food, that feeling of fuel and nourishment. That's what my body felt when I was doing nervous system training. I realized that this was a specific type of bioelectric energy and neural activation my biological vessel was always supposed to be getting, but never received through functional fitness alone. If you're relying exclusively on rigid gym machines, or if you're stuck practicing only one predictable sport, you're training inside a box. You're forcing your body through linear, repetitive patterns, same ones day in and day out. And these repetitive paths exhaust your energy, drain your adrenal reserves, and actually leave your joints vulnerable to wear and tear. To upgrade your biological operating system, grow new neural pathways, build unshakable core stability, and unlock a level of cellular intelligence you have never tapped into before, you must calibrate your nervous system. The gateway to mastering this hardware is through our Bioenergetic Sovereignty Audit and the 36-note 90-day intensive. Inside this intensive program, we perform weekly audits. We audit your entire operational stack, every aspect of your lifestyle that all plays out in how you move, how you breathe. And we build your custom neuromuscular and physical protocols. Even if you're not doing a sport, but you move every day and you want to be able to move without pain into longevity, then this is for you. Scan the QR code on the screen right now to book your private bioenergetic sovereignty audit and secure your spot. To book your 90-day intensive, use the link in the description below. You can pay for the 90-day intensive now in two ways. You can pay in full or you can pay monthly. If you pay in full, you get your private audit as a gift. You can, if you start in August, you can stretch out those payments over 4 months. So it becomes a lot more affordable per month. Contact me directly using the link in the description below if you want to book your 90-day intensive. And if you have any questions about any of these programs, obviously check out my website. It's a vast library of critical information about your health. And now I outline exactly what the audit entails, exactly what the 90-day intensive entails. And with any questions, email me directly through the link in the description. I will see you in the dojo.